Man, what a bloody morning in the world of crypto. Just keeps going lower, dude.
It keeps going lower. Just when you think you can't go lower, lower it goes, man. You know, it's like that chart. It's like you thought you lost 90%. Well, guess what? You got another 90% to go, man. It just feels like that right now. It's brutal.
And the lower the chart goes, the lower engagement goes. Everyone just slowly drifts away. And it literally just becomes the builders left. We just had this conversation last week with Hunter, where it's the same thing. He was saying it's easier as a podcaster. It's easier to connect, you know, and network with different types of builders. But man, dude, everyone else is just so angry on the timeline.
Totally. I think I'm actually psyched for this convo because this is one of these projects that it bridges into, you know, real world assets. It bridges into Pokemon. It's got all these cool things going on about it that, I mean, for us, get us pretty excited about it. Cause this is like, you realize when something, you know, the thing that's really going to hit in crypto, you know, whether it's gaming, it's real world assets, it's something that's going to be not just, you know, crypto native. It's going to be something that bridges that gap. And I think, you know, these guys have a really good product and are trying to bridge that gap. So excited for this conversation.
Yeah, we've loved RWAs for a while. We had Courtyard on, was that almost 2 years ago when they had just started. Emblem is also somewhat of like an RWA platform, but for digital assets, right? Trading NFTs across different types of blockchains. We like to call it kind of like a DWA, digital world asset. But, you know, people like Beezie, people like Andrea, who are building something awesome. Love to learn more. Before we do dive in, one of the things that we continue to harp on, but seems no one on the timeline is talking about, is how Courtyard has been literally number one on the it's been number one on the OpenSea leaderboard for weeks at this point, right? A lot of attention. Pokemon, some of my friends who are in the Pokemon breaking world on TikTok have started to tell me about Courtyard and how they trade different types of things. Obviously, we love Flo as well, who we have a relationship with, and just super excited to talk about things RWAs outside of just the traditional finance of BlackRock tokenizing money markets. Man, what is the fun in that? I want some gamification. I want some cards. I want some vending machines. So without further ado, Andrea, thank you for joining us today. How are you feeling and how are you holding up in the rough times of this market?
Hey guys, nice to meet you. Thanks for having us here. The morning's been kind of shit, but for those of us that have been here for a while, you just ride the middle. Like this market is not going to scare a builder that's been here since the last pre-bull market with NFTs. We've consistently been building Beezie, showing up every day in and day out, right in the trenches along with everyone else. So, it's a down day, it's a down market, but obviously we all have conviction in where the future's going.
Yeah, absolutely love to hear it. I'd love to get a little bit on your background before we do dive into everything Beezie and all of the cool stuff that you guys are doing. So I'd love to just, get a little bit of your background.
Of course. So my professional background, most of my career I spent in high-tech healthcare, which doesn't have a massive amount of overlap with what we do here, other than I'm pretty decent at taking something complicated and dumbing it down a little bit. But, in terms of collectibles, it's been a part of my personal fabric my whole life. I joke around, I've got binders like from the 80s of basketball cards with my dad going and scouring like garage sales and swap meets. I mean, Beanie Babies, coins, comics, it's just all been there. I a few weeks ago I put something on the timeline. I had graded a collection of like base set Pokemon cards that I did not think survived garage sales over the years. And my dad, after hearing what we were doing with Beezie, just showed up with them one day at my house and was like, "Remember this binder? I've had it. Can you do something with it?" I was like, "Yeah, Dad, we can do something with it." So it was cool because I took one of the cards and out of my own collection and thought, I want to put it in our claw machine and let it keep going. Like I've been spending the last few years building Beezie with Pratik and the team. And there was something really beautiful about something that's been in my life since childhood, kind of like moving on through my own passion here.
Yeah, absolutely love to hear it. Also, just from my own background, I had an antique store in real life and also used to go literally just 5-6 years ago, going door to door to yard sales, storage, going to storage units, going to liquidation sales, trying to find those deals. So I have a deep appreciation of that. Also, Adam and myself, we were really big on historical NFTs back in the 2021, 2022 cycle of digital antiquities. So a lot of real cool fascination that we all share, that type of appreciation. Also, Chris and I, who are on stage, millennials, I had Pokemon cards and Pogs and all of the different types of collectibles. So love to hear the background story. Let's dive in then to Beezie. What is Beezie? What kind of use case has it found recently? And then also I'm curious, why Flow blockchain?
Oh my God, there's so much to I feel like I could just answer the last question for the next 30 minutes, but I'll try to keep it somewhat brief. So Beezie was born conceptually in the heart of the last bull run with NFTs. My co-founder and I, Pratik, ideated on this smart contract that had an instant liquidity offer tied to the rarity or fair market value of an asset, whether that's an NFT or an RWA. We actually filed a provisional patent on that back in 2021 and still pending. It takes forever, but that's really when the inception happened for it. We continued building out that contract and sort of like an early MVP through the bull, and then got deeper into the bear market and decided to really double down on collectibles versus more like multi-category between NFTs and collectibles, because as you know, obviously from your background, collectibles and the buying and selling is such a massively antiquated space, and blockchain is just a really elegant solution to a lot of those problems. So we started working on Beezie in that iteration. That smart contract is still the core of our claw machine. We actually used it on some early drops that we did in our MVP. Our initial MVP was on Blast. We chose Blast initially because we all have been here for a while. We knew it was highly incentivized. There'll be a ton of traction with an RWA platform, particularly one that, with physical collectibles that are sort of coming in and out of the vault. We had to make sure we could stress test our logistics and that they would hold up with a high amount of fast volume. And we did exactly that. What we were also able to do with that MVP was get some amazing product feedback from our community in real time in a, really tight period of time. So we took that feedback. We continued to build out the product based on that. Obviously, no shade to Blast. I really respect the hell out of a lot of people on that team, but it didn't shake out the way we all hoped and wanted it to. And so we started to think, all right, when we pivot to a real Web 2 focus over the next months and years, where are we going to marry ourselves, right? What chains are out there? So we talked to probably most chains that we all know, and there was a lot of good about each of them. But Flow, for a lot of different reasons, was where we landed. First and foremost, the team over there is amazing, second to none. They could not be more supportive of Beezie and us as builders. It feels like whenever we ask for something, right away they're like, yes, let's do it. How can we do it? What do you need? They're always just a Slack message or a call away. They're just like, it's an amazing ecosystem to build in from that perspective. Second, we're a collectibles platform, and the IP that already exists in the Flow world is incredible. And there's a lot of future partnerships coming with that. And so that was a huge advantage for us, to be in the same room and have the same consumers that are putting eyes on us that initially come in for maybe Disney or Mattel or NBA or NFL was a big bonus for what we're trying to build. So, again, I could talk about this for a while, but I kept it as short as I can.
Well, I don't think you need to really justify, partnering or choosing a chain where, the geniuses who started Flow basically are to have Top Shot and, CryptoKitties on their, their win rate. They're pretty darn good at winning. So, and I love the idea. Obviously, they have NBA, NFL. They do all the, Top Shop type moments. They're great at bringing in, like you said, Disney, bigger IP. And obviously we're still super early in the digital collectible kind of space, right? So it feels like a great spot for you. One question I had, this is because when we talked to the Courtyard guys, I thought and still think choosing your kind of partner to be the trusted third party for holding the actual asset is really, really important. And I gave them credit for back then. They chose Brinks as well as you guys did. And I just think it's critical that you go with somebody who is like really, really trusted. Walk us through that process of choosing them, or what was your thought process at that time?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen other platforms come out that were very, like Web3. There was a focus on decentralization, and some of these vaults had no location given. And I think there's probably a carve out of our market in Web3 that's fine with that. But ultimately, we knew that the market that we were going after, the majority lives outside of this space. And we just couldn't be a crypto startup, blockchain based, brand new to the scene, asking people that maybe have never been on chain before, already had skepticism. The narrative at that point in time was not great. It's certainly not, what it is today. But we needed to have that brand recognition for the vault to kind of marry to Beezie, which was brand new. Couldn't ask people to send in, their prized possessions to somewhere that they don't know, to a small startup. There was just too much of a question mark there. So really, the contract did not happen overnight. As you can imagine, Brinks is, a Web2 brand, and there's a lot to go through when you're working with one of those big brands, but we were able to get it done, and it was certainly worth the time and the patience that it took.
Can you tell me a little bit about that with Brinks? Like, it seems like just an amazing fit for them to move into this space. Do you know anything about how they decided to move into the space and kind of become this like, guardian of the assets? Like, do you know anything about kind of their history moving into it?
Yeah, I won't speak too much for them, but I'll say that they brought on a guy who is sort of their lead in this space that came from Web3. He's incredibly forward thinking. He's massively supportive, and he really leads that program for them. So, although I think probably the guys that are way up on the top of the food chain there might not be, as blockchain native or savvy as most of us are in this space. He is, and he has been just a really great resource. And, if it makes sense, a translator for companies like us to get stuff done and get these partnerships in place.
So I'm sitting here on the live stream and I'm going through Beezie, looking at all the different categories that you have. Between some of the trending ones are Pokemon, basketball, football, but then some of these other categories, man, it's really giving me some nostalgia and some flashbacks. The one that I found most intriguing is actually video games. What is the thought behind some of these traditional video games and selling them? You are really tapping into nostalgia, because what I see here is 007 from N64, which was like one of my favorite games growing up. Super Mario from Nintendo. You have Pac-Man from Atari, and the list just like continues to go on.
So we initially, it was all about being and coming out of the gates multi-category. We knew that that was something we wanted to do. We didn't want to be, just another card platform, honestly. And it was important that we brought in more of a breadth of options for collectors, because what we've found is collectors collect, right? We've got a lot of people that maybe come in because they saw somebody post about Beezie and Pokemon on the timeline, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I played this video game. I'm really interested in trying to pick up some of these vintage graded games. So with our MVP, because, of course, we're still in lean startup, we had to be multi-category, but also do something that made sense in terms of authentication and just, limited resources. So we said, let's bring in a graded collectibles, because we're able to obviously link it back at that point in time to a grading company. It was pretty easy. I love the vintage video games. Personally, we had, a lot of people that were really pressing for comics. We had some Funko Pop lovers, and it's just an easy lift in terms of logistics back then. And so that's kind of where the thought process behind opening up just beyond graded cards.
Yeah, there's some other ones you have. I see some watches with Rolex, comics, even some sealed products like boxes and such. So first, when did you guys launch? And since then, what type of lessons have you learned, or maybe some types of, I guess you'd say, what type of like difference has the market presented you since launching? Was there any type of reaction from the market that maybe was unintended or unexpected, or has the business plan essentially just been pretty clear and straightforward since launch?
I mean, nothing's clear and straightforward in the world of startups.
Especially in this industry.
Sure.
Yeah, especially in this industry. But again, when you've been here, you're a Web3 native team, it's really hard to be surprised in that sense. Like lessons learned, I don't know if it's so much as a lesson, but what I think is really important to startups, not only in this space, but all startups. And, you certainly hear, I think there's a clip of like the Airbnb founder saying this, but 100 or 1,000 people that really love your product and will sort of be your disciples screaming about it is way better than 10,000, 20,000, or 100,000 that try it once and walk away and never talk about it again. And I think that gives you longevity as a builder. It doesn't take, you might not pop off the same way we've seen other projects where overnight they have, millions in TVL and people are going crazy and it's all over your timeline. But then a month later, they don't exist anymore. It certainly doesn't happen that way when you are building with consistency and really focused on, iterating on the product based on your community's feedback, listening to your community, and really bringing those early members along for the ride and truly being grateful for the feedback and their presence. So if I were to tell any builder, it's, find that organic, authentic community that is at your core, what will give you legs to last much longer than, a quick flash in the pan on the timeline.
What's your has your like revenue strategy? Have you had to pivot? I mean, we've had to pivot, with the destruction of royalties. Have you been able to kind of stay with your additional or your initial revenue model, or you guys had to pivot? I'd imagine there's kind of like, especially with Brinks and stuff, there are kind of these like standard recurring fees and costs you guys have. But can you kind of, without necessarily naming specifics, but kind of give us a framework of how you're thinking about revenue?
Yeah, so I think one of the pivots, and it's not something that we've taken off, but in our MVP, we did drops, right? So we would let our resellers or brands come on the platform and do a drop of 100 slabs or 200 slabs. We did the initial pre-sale for Vibes, their booster boxes. And drops are great, but what we found is that people really want that 24/7 option to scratch the itch, to like just be able to come on Beezie and interact in a gamified way. I remember back in the day, Courtyard was doing drops too. And then obviously they pivot to their vending machine. We have our Claw, which is multi-category one, and then Tag is the other. I think that a lot of brands and RWAs that you see are kind of looking at that model. What I'm pretty proud of is that for us, it's the same smart contract we've been working on since 2021. And that ties in that buyback, that instant liquidity that, we wrote 160 something pages on. So even whether we were using it in a drop, whether we're using it in the claw machine, it's the core logic of all of it has remained true. I think it's just being able to adapt to what the market's asking you for.
Tell us a little bit about, for people hearing it for the first time, what is that buyback feature?
So, with cards or sneakers or whatever's in the claw, we basically look at what the value is on the secondary market. And then when the user reveals the asset, we give you what we call a swap offer. For right now, it's 90% of the fair market value. So if someone gets a pair of sneakers in the claw that's not their size or their taste, right away they can swap it back for 90%. If they get a card that they're sort of like, I don't want this in my collection, right away they can swap it back. It's just, it takes a bit of the risk away for the buyer. And as the platform, any of these platforms, ours included, that's really where you're making your revenue. It's on that 6% fee that most of us take in the swap or the buyback.
Yeah, I have it here pulled up on the live stream. This seems to be, really catering towards the crypto natives that love, whether it's a gambling aspect or you could call it a speculative aspect to it. It really gamifies the experience and kind of mimics what's hot right now, which is breaking packs on the internet, like what you see people doing on YouTube or on TikTok, I think is the other one. Yeah, with TikTok Shop.
Yep.
What? How has this been so far, the claw? And then take us through kind of your thought of, really merging these different types of, I guess you'd say, emerging markets between those who are, marketing cards and games and stuff on TikTok and like breaking to this on-chain environment of crypto.
Where to start? So I'll start with, like merging environments. For us, it was important to do the multi-category claw first and then be able to showcase a partner claw with tag, because we, one of the things about Beezie that makes us different from some other startups and platforms is that we've built out our platform to be a tech partner for other brands. So we look at us as Beezie as more of like a distribution channel, a way for new brands to tap into Web3 and crypto. Obviously the claw is magic for content and engagement. So they're able to use that. But, as a startup, you can't just go to someone and say, hey, brand X, give us, $50K to start this up for you. Here's what we think will work, right? You need real data points. And so the last quarter, since I was live, what we've been able to do is roll out a few different price points, be able to accumulate a ton on the analytics and data front. So now when we're having conversations with partners and potential partners, we're saying, here's what we've seen, here's what we've tested, here's what works, here's what, we would recommend. Ultimately, it's always going to be their decision on how they want to create their claw. But, at the same time, you really need that data to support any assumptions.
Yeah, I totally agree on this. We've gone through some learning experiences on our own through Emblem of trying to encourage people, especially in the NFT space, to participate, right? There's this kind of cultural aspect to it. There's this adoption aspect. And then there's obviously a technical hurdle to this as well. How is Beezie and you guys going about targeting new users? Obviously, RWAs are subtly somewhat of a hot topic. On the traditional side, you have BlackRock coming in and doing, tokenized money markets. And then on the other side of this, that caters more towards, I guess you'd say the crypto natives, right? You have like Pokemon cards and Courtyard, and it has kind of like really kind of pushed the door. And then you guys are coming in and coming about it in a different way. Who's the target audience here? And then how are you attracting those who are maybe breaking cards, on YouTube or TikTok to then, essentially vault their card with Brinks and then sell it on Beezie?
So I'll just say we have just not even scratched the surface on, really doubling down on user acquisition. I always tell the team it's a marathon, not a sprint. And to do it the right way doesn't mean you come out of the gates going full steam. I think it's really important to be thoughtful, to be planned, to be measured, especially in these early days with a new product activation like Claw. We are playing in the playground right now that we know best, right? And that's Web3. So credit to the team. I see, Shanice in the audience, Profits Over Wages. Obviously, we have Docs and Wizard, people know really well. We're massively
with you. Don't worry.
Oh, she's there. Okay. So, all of the and she can pop up here for that. But all of the volume, the revenue, our users, I would say 90% right now comes from Web3. And it's just credit to the team and knowing what works and what doesn't work, because they've been here. We've all been here for a really long time. We've sort of seen so much come and go, tapping into our own networks, communities that we've been in. And again, just doubling down for this early data in this playground that we've all been in for the last few years. Aside from that, the playbook on how to get Web 2 consumers is already been written, right? It's there. It's much more straightforward. that's why a platform like ours is so attractive to other bigger Web2 brands to potentially come into and tap in for distribution. Because when it comes to Web3 and crypto, other brands outside the space, you don't know what you don't know, right? You can put together a great team of engineers. You might find some decent marketing people, but you don't really know, how to navigate these waters unless you've been actively here. And so we give other brands that, right? They can say, hey, we want to tap into this market in 30 days, in 60 days. And we have the roadmap, the playbook for them to do it really, really well and really, really efficiently.
So entice me a little bit. I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper because I'm curious. RWAs are really fascinating. Obviously, I've done like antiquing, and I had my own antique store for a few years. Bringing these assets on chain, it's tough because there's this like physical component to it, and then there's also this digital component, but the Web2 digital component of the attention economy of these users who are breaking packs and making thousands of dollars a day, and then they're doing these kind of sales in a manual way through their chat on their TikTok shop. But there's literally tens of billions of dollars of assets sitting, maybe even hundreds of billions of dollars of assets sitting in the real world, that needs to be brought on chain, right? If that were to happen, if you were to penetrate even 1 or 2% of that, that's a gigantic warehousing cost, but also a gigantic warehousing kind of problem that has to be solved. So I'd love to just dive in a little bit more of like, how do you go about this of even bringing, we'll say, 1% of the entire physical collectible market on chain?
Yeah, I think that you can't just focus on pack breaking, right? Because that has its own unique sort of element and how it gets from the pack breaker to the buyer. So that's sort of a separate conversation. But you can look at traditional Web2 models. I think the Real is a great example of a model that worked well from like a warehousing authenticating component to distributing it to the buyers from the sellers. Adding the Real on chain would not be a huge lift because all the other pieces are already in place. You're 100% correct that it's a massive market, and when you look at it as a whole, it can be really daunting. But when you thoughtfully think through vaulting combined with potentially warehousing, which is much lower cost, versus we always talk about, do you have an option of cold storage and sort of hot storage as a company? Cold storage is like our ledger, where these are assets that are not coming in and out of the vault. They're high value, they're really sitting there. And then this hot storage option, which is more what we know is going to come in and out. I think it's not as challenging from an on-chain perspective as it is what models exist already in logistics and distribution that you can take and then actually plug in on chain. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
completely.
one question. Sorry, Jake. One question there is, and just because I don't know the industry, are any of these kind of card manufacturers or even the grading service? It seemed like this would be a natural business for the grading, the card grading services. Are any of them moving? Is the Tops moving into this space at all right now, or what's the kind of state of the industry right now?
I think that's a better question for Gary Vee. He seems to have the plug over at Tops. So maybe invite him on for that one. I don't have the alpha with them, but certainly there are grading companies that we talk to that again, I can't speak for them, but the interest is definitely there. And I think they see the success of different brands, and the writing is on the wall for a lot of these pieces. But again, you'd be surprised the companies that we speak to that have blockchain at some point in time, either in the past or now on their roadmap, but just don't have a great grasp on how to actually do it and do it well. And the scary thing is for those brands, as we all know, because we've been here, we've seen bigger brands, especially, in the luxury world, where when you're looking at it, you think, oh, this kind of makes sense, but then just fall flat on their face because maybe they've partnered with the wrong people, maybe they didn't really tap in the way they should have. So it's daunting for these companies, and to not have, a really great source or proof point to help them along the way. They're looking for it. They want to do it. It's on their roadmap, but it's really, but how do we get there? And that's what we hope to be, that sort of the bridge for a lot of those companies.
Go ahead, Profits.
What's up, Jake?
What's good?
Yeah, that was a good question you asked, and then lost my train of thought a bit. But I was just gonna go after the the fact that there's a big problem that's being solved here that has never been solved in collectibles in all the years, like years. And unfortunately, we just chalk it up to, oh, it's an L. I bought from eBay. I got a fake, or I bought from somebody on Instagram that I thought was legit. Or PayPal, right? I remember back in the day, it was annoying as shit to make a sale if you didn't have PayPal, because it's like, oh, I don't trust you, I don't know you. And so people have, that's why there's certain collectors and resellers that have a higher, I think, even customer base, because they had to, you're forcing now credibility and accountability, I should say, because now it's like, well, I don't want any fees and I don't want to lose out on this customer. Let me make sure to like give them their product whenever they ask and give them good prices. But there's the RWA phrase. I'm not gonna lie, I'm annoyed of it. A baseball card worth 10 grand isn't an asset for them, even though they can go get liquid. You can go sell it for 10 grand. But real estate is, right? And so I think we're gonna kind of break into, like, disrupt the space. Not just RWAs, obviously collectibles, but I think we're even going to come up with a new term too, because this is it's a little too corporate-y for me, if I'm being honest. And you tell RWA to a collector, bro, they're gonna be like, what? They're like, yeah, this is valuable, this is an asset. But yeah, thank you guys for hosting this space. It's been a fun time so far.
Well, I'm wondering your thoughts on, like, what happens, right? We kind of know, because we're in crypto. We kind of know what happens when you basically make collectibles instantly tradable. Like, my kid's got thousands of Pokemon cards up there. He mistakenly believes that he's sitting on literally a gold mine, right? But it's like the moment you actually make them actually tradable, right? What happens? You get like, oh wow, this is actually, price drops because there are actually way more than you thought of these, or right? It's almost like, part of me feels like, especially for the amateur collector kids, basically, there's this illusion of value simply because they're untradeable, or unsellable. And maybe in that way, bringing all this stuff to like instant liquidity with a bunch of degens maybe doesn't have the intended consequence. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Oh, we lost Profits is off stage, but maybe Andrea, maybe you have a thought of it.
Yeah, I think, I come at it. I've got kids that collect Pokemon cards right now, and my son will be like, oh, my collection, it's like $2,000. I'm like, dude, how are you going to sell it? You're going to take pictures, set up an eBay account, have me do it for you, link my debit card. It's a massive process for them. And these are kids that are used to Fortnite and Roblox and everything instant. eBay and these sort of Web 2 marketplaces and the length of time it takes to actually tap into that liquidity is not the future. Truly, I mean, if he could snap his fingers and get his entire collection on chain tomorrow, he would do it. Sure. And it would be a much easier way. So, that's sort of the consumer that we're truly building for at this point in time.
Yeah, it is interesting. So kind of looking at it from a larger, or I guess you'd say macro perspective, Beezie right now, it supports mostly millennial type nostalgia, and then I guess the newer versions of like Pokemon cards and stuff that's attracting Zoomers. But what is the larger objective? Profits mentioned like real estate, but what other type of RWAs?
My internet went out. Sorry, I don't know where you guys left off. Hold on, Jake. I don't like the way you're fucking putting us in a small box, pal. Every slab, every collectible known to man is available. You can get it. You can be into comics. You can be into cards. There's guys that like basketball, but not Pokemon. So yeah, we're not a one-trick pony here.
Oh yeah, you missed the beginning. We went over all the categories in the very beginning of the show.
You know, I think Whatnot did a really good job expanding categories slowly. I don't know if you've, followed them since launch, but you can't open the floodgates on day one. And so you have to be thoughtful about what's going to appeal to the current people in the room. For us, it's all about expanding categories with partnerships. So I think that's what you need to keep an eye on with Beezie. When it makes sense to bring in luxury bags because we have someone where that is their focus and they've got a community that follows them and they want to get these assets on chain, we're going to do it. Until that point in time, we're not going to do it.
Well,
We're
that's
working on a big
one of
watch
the things-
partner. Go ahead.
How do you, I mean, that it's super challenging, obviously, from a marketing perspective to bring in kind of these different, like you said, okay, you're bringing in Birkin bags. Well, how does somebody who wants a Birkin bag even know to come to you, right? Like, what's your thought process on the marketing? I mean, obviously you have the crypto kind of market covered, but to reach out to these kind of what we call web 2 communities, what's the strategy there? I mean, it's got to be super challenging.
Yeah, I mean, it's solving a problem for them first and foremost, right? And I'll say it's much easier to build your brand as a startup on the backs of other brands that already exist than it is just to build your brand as a startup. And that's why, this model has legs. So when we put out the Tag Claw, the partnership with Tag, we had an instant influx of brand new users that were coming in because they saw Beezie on Tag's channel. Now, arguably, Tag is a smaller grading company than PSA or CGC or Beckett, but they have more eyes on them than Beezie did. You'll continue to see that model with us, with some of the partnerships that we're bringing in. We come from the space that we double down on user generated content. We look at the Claw as a great solution to a cold start problem that a lot of marketplaces and other platforms have because it's a hook, right? It's a gamified experience that gets people in the door. So if I am, let's say a luxury goods consignment platform that has great content that's being pushed out from brand ambassadors, and all of a sudden now I'm dabbling with Beezie, if I have 50,000, 100,000 followers on Instagram and I am posting about a Claw with a Birkin bag on it, all of a sudden all those new eyes come onto Beezie. That is, it's a really interesting model and way and something we've found success in so far. And I anticipate continuing to find success in and how we continue to build our brand and tap into new communities and new collectors.
The expansion methodology reminds me a lot of Jeff Bezos and Amazon, where their initial vision, right, was to be the everything store. But he started with books because he thought that was the easiest penetration path because everyone read books, right? And kind of the market that he was going about. And it's interesting how the other aspect of this is expanding through brands and partnerships. Excuse me, where if you're going to dive into kind of Birkin bags, you probably try to go talk with the Birkin bag company, to kind of let them know, that this kind of thing is available. And then obviously you have the bottom up approach through the user base, either whether it's through crypto or kind of through this traditional methodology. But even again, going back to kind of the macro kind of perspective, where do you see this type of platform headed to? Is it something that eventually tokenizes every type of non-fungible item in the real world, whether it's vehicles and house deeds and art, or is there something else that maybe people are missing that this type of platform Beezie can eventually become is the larger objective here?
No, I mean, listen, you don't want to spread yourself too thin. A lot of people get excited about real estate and other RWAs coming on chain, but Beezie's for collectibles. So we will stay in that lane. There's no reason to go outside of it. It's a massive market, and finding success here is truly success. It'll be interesting, the conversations that we're being approached with and things that could potentially involve with that. That's sort of, to be determined, but it is a super exciting path to be on because you really feel like you're at the front of this tech. And again, you're bringing solutions to real problems for other brands out there. But it's a long, the roundabout way to answer your question is we're a collectibles platform, and that's where we'll always stay.
Awesome. Absolutely love it. Chris, do you have any questions for Andrea?
Yeah, she's killing it. I love the space that you're building in. It's like one of my favorite to follow at the moment. It's so different. So unique and just has like so much kind of potential. So I guess from me, first off, like, where is the attention on the platform? What is like the most impactful product? Is it the packs? Is it just Pokemon cards in general? Is it the claw? Is it sneakers? Like, where's the focus?
Right now, there's massive overlap in Web3 with TCG, particularly Pokemon. So we get a ton of traction with not only slabs, but sealed product people are really interested in. So we're going to keep pushing along those lines. They love the claw machine. It's super fun. But what we've really enjoyed as a team is seeing people that build their collections out based on what they're grabbing from the claw. So that's been a lot of fun to watch that happen. So I would say if the biggest revenue driver right now is 100% the claw, but we're also seeing a lot of fun marketplace sales and people just building out their on-chain collection. And we love to see people redeem too, and then post those assets on the timeline, like Beezie delivery day is the best day of the week. We see all of those posts and we really love it because it feels like it's a truly full circle platform.
One of the great parts about it is how much user generated content you get from just packing, pulling the packs, or like you said, redeeming the items. You have so many moments that you can kind of capture, which is really interesting. So do you guys curate the packs and then you guys fill the claw machine? Is that right? On both ends?
Yeah, so the packs, we don't necessarily call them packs in the claw machine. It's their assets. So we're constantly replenishing and, keeping our odds where they need to be. We look at it multiple times a day. And if Pratik and the dev team need to put in more grails, more bases, more commons, it's a constant ongoing back and forth.
Gotcha.
The first clause multi-category. So it's anything from sneakers. We had a Rolex in there at one point, to card slabs, to sealed product.
Nice. This is like an interesting one. I don't know how many NFT people we have in crypto, Web3 people. And I don't know how many collectible people there are. Are we importing Web2 people, collectors, to Web3 at the moment? Or are we exporting Web3 people to more of like the Web2 digital collectibles, like Pokemon and like sports? Where do you think we're at?
I think I'll give credit where credit's due. I think Courtyard has done a great job with bringing Web2 people on chain without them necessarily knowing it. That vending machine, is doing really, really well from a revenue standpoint. I think we are probably the flip side of that, and we're bringing more Web3 people back into TCG, whether it's Pokemon or whatever. We hear that story over and over and over again, like, oh my God, I'm reigniting my passion for collecting. That I used to collect these Pokemon cards. I had a binder, and now I'm doing it again with Beezie. So I think there's a bit of both.
Yeah, I definitely think it's both. I think you kind of got it right that the future is obviously totally digital, but this is kind of like the stepping stone. And it's like Web3 people have to go backwards to bring these Web2 people on. So we kind of have to like work backwards before we can kind of move forward. So I think that approach is kind of actually the best one, because, that market is so big, but we kind of have to, pace ourselves before we go fully digital. And this seems like the biggest stepping stone. I think maybe last one for me, where do you see the product evolving? I mean, you're at the forefront of what I think is like one of the most kind of exciting spaces at the moment. How big can you guys get? What are you looking at in terms of scale, and kind of like what does, in general, kind of not like financial success, but just general success look like?
Yeah, how big can we get? Pretty fucking big. That's my answer to that.
Love it.
That's the answer.
All the fucking cards, bro. All the cards. Yeah.
Where we see like looking out towards the end of this year, we we crushed our Q1 projection. Super proud of that. We'll continue to build off that momentum. You know, a big focus is bringing in new brand partnerships and having an arcade full of claws that are not Beezie branded. Our North Star has always been that this platform is built for other brands for distribution and scale, and really to tap into great UGC with the claw for them to utilize it and bring them on chain. So, you know, just keep an eye out for new brands that we're going to be bringing into the platform in the mix. We'll probably have a couple white label claws put out there as well. A lot of really interesting, fun stuff that we're working on from a partnership standpoint. We will continue to double down on building Beezie as a great place for collectors to connect. So, you know, you can anticipate collector chats being integrated into the platform. Yeah, obviously live streaming is going to be on the horizon. That's a little bit more of a way out, and whether it's through a partnership or our own integration, that will happen at some point. But you know, we're constantly shipping. We love feedback from the community. I see a lot of members in the audience. Appreciate every single one of them. Keep the feedback coming, guys, because everything we do, it truly, you know, most of it comes from a seed or an idea or an ask from our core group of users, and we will continue to always listen and build for them.
I love it. How are the sneakers? How is the interest on the sneakers? It's such a big community online. I wonder like what the crossover is at the moment.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of sneakerheads here. I mean, certainly Profits can speak to that. This is really her wheelhouse and world. Not a lot of people know she was a OG, you know, sneakerhead and streetwear and all that. So it's been fun to have her, you know, kind of leading that journey. We are really doubling down with what people want right now, and so much of that is TCG focused. I personally love sneakers. Like, I have a big collection, and if I'm pulling from the claw, or, you know, friends are pulling from the claw, I think there's a lot of Web 2 interest there. But Web 3 loves Pokemon right now. So that's what we're going to give them.
They love Pokemon cards. I don't know what it is, but we love it.
I was going to chime and say, personally for me, Jake, I don't know if you buy sneakers regularly. You seem kind of like a stylish dude. So I think you do. But lately I would say in the sneaker world, and I'm sure a lot would agree, it is such a wild west when it comes to fakes and all the things. I mean, you got every influencer with 100,000 followers wearing fake Travis Scotts on Instagram. All types of stuff, and some don't even care. Some actually don't care. Most don't know that they spent $1,000 on a fake. But the point is, we have a unique way of how we kind of went about sneakers, which is going with the collectors first that have, you know, the trust. Right? We have two really big collectors / resellers on the platform that have stocked the sneakers pretty well, that have OG, like, just die hard buyers that anytime they need a sneaker, Christmas, they go through them. So we've been very specific with how we go about sneakers, really going with the people that are trusted first, working with them, and now their community has access to, you know, another way that they can buy those same sneakers from that trusted person, right? So sneakers are a little different because even the smartest mom trying to get a cool pair of sneakers for her son will ask a sneakerhead, hey, where do I get a real pair for my son? Right. And so that is until that's changed, which, you know, I see blockchain changing that and creating more trust and having to think about if you're buying a fake or not. But to answer your question, that's kind of how we went about it, kind of onboarding core resellers that have a really large community of buyers already that now are onboarding, you know, them to our platform.
Yeah, makes sense. Andrew, I have two questions from my side. One of them is, when you're talking with potential partners, whether mostly in the Web 2 kind of brand space, what is their thoughts about RWAs and tokenizing, you know, some of their assets on the secondary market and trading through crypto? Is it a positive response, and are they open to this type of innovation?
You know, most of the people that we get a call with, there's already some familiarity and interest there. So it's, you know, it's mostly positive. There's always those questions like, oh, is gas killing you? Like, how do you deal with that? And, you know, there's some education up front, but I think the industry is really at a place where we can elegantly bring people in without the friction of 3 or 4 years ago. So, these brands, a lot of the conversation is, well, your users can sign in with their email and pay with their credit card and their Google Pay and their Apple Pay, and it's all really simple. And so that alleviates a lot of those concerns. And then there's the interest of brand new revenue for them, because we take what we know in this space as quote unquote creator royalties, and we tie that to collectibles, and we call it commission sharing. So if I'm a brand and I put 5,000 assets on chain with Beezie, now every time one of those digital sells, I'm getting 1% back. And that's something that doesn't happen in the Web 2 world. So when you couple, like, we're solving logistics, we're giving you new revenue, and there's 0 to no friction point for your consumers, it's a pretty compelling argument.
Tell me about, do they kind of, is one of the questions you get hit with is, blockchain, there's no backseas, are they concerned about their user experience? Is this a concern, like why they would prefer to just have the assets just live on their own website kind of thing without a blockchain, because they could kind of control the assets themselves? Do you get any pushback in that kind of arena?
Not really. I mean, again, a lot of the conversations when they get to my desk, they're already at a place of interest. So I'm not, I don't need to convince someone about the benefits of crypto. That's not my job, right? Like, they have to come at least open-minded enough where they've said, oh, this could be a potential interesting partnership. And a lot of the conversation is, around the user experience. And I think once you're able to show that, and right now the proof is in the pudding, I can quite literally say, go try the claw yourself on Beezie. It's live. You can actually go through the user experience, and here's what it would look like for you and your community. It's much easier, right? It's not a beta play. It's not closed. It's there for them to experience themselves so they can really imagine it and see it.
Sense. Last question for me is just understanding the composition of the BZ team. Are you guys something that's VC backed? Is this self-funded? Is this a cohort of a few individuals? And how large is the team?
Wait, before Andrew answers that, we actually decided we're gonna go ahead and launch a meme coin today. So go ahead and engage.
Oh my God,
with
shut up.
BZ page.
Someone's going to clip that, and I'm going to be...
First people.
Holy shit, she makes me sweat. So no, we have 6 full-time. We actually brought our engineering team in-house, so they make up the most of that. My co-founder, Pratik, is a technical founder. He's amazing. He's a dev, but he's got some amazing engineers under him. We have myself, obviously Shanice is here, Docs and Wizard on the marketing and BD side. We are a team that we got some small angel and family size offices that backed us early, that we have great relationships with. They've been massively supportive. We did our MVP. We took in some revenue. We were able to extend our runway. We're making revenue right now. We are certainly not one of those teams that goes out and just blows a shit ton of money. We know how to stretch a dollar and be really efficient with our capital. And so we're in a really good place right now.
I love to hear that. As a team, Emblem, eight people who's never received any VC funding and bootstrapped the entire thing. And, you have multiple people on a small team playing different positions. I really admire tenacity, especially in a market like this where you have to continue to put one foot forward and continue to build. So, Andrea, I really appreciate you for coming on. And Beezie, I'd love to talk deeper to see if there's some sort of partnership or relationship we can have between Emblem and Beezie. I have some ideas, so I'll reach out at a different time. And for those that are new to the show, we host a show Tuesday through Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Please make sure that you follow Andrea and Beezie so you can follow along with the cool RW experience. If you love the show, please follow the Emblem account as well as Agent Hustle. That's on stage. That's our AI project. Andrea, I'll give the floor to you for any kind of last comments, anything you'd like to announce. And yeah.
No, I just want to give some gratitude. This was an amazing stage. You guys asked some really thoughtful questions. I very much enjoyed the opportunity to come on and talk a bit about Beezie and hope to do it again soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more for me. One more for me. Hold on. It's too good. What about the prize makeup? You guys fill the claw machine. Are people looking for just the highest level grails? Like when you have that one of one kind of item in there, is that spiking the kind of participation in a meaningful way, or most people looking for like an average hit rate where they would rather have it filled with like 10, 8 out of 10 items than 11 out of 10 items?
Jake,
Like
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what she's gonna say, but I'll tell you this: we have crack addicts, so I don't even know if they wait for the
they're just
resolve
shooting
or
from the
what.
hip. They want to hit
shoot all day, every day. But yeah, I think maybe Andrea wants to answer that.
I mean, there's always going to be a certain spread in the machine, and you can see that with, what we post there. There are certainly, more coveted grails that are harder to get your hands on that we put in, and we can see a spike. But there's also people that are just running through and using it and kind of like pulling out mid tiers because it's a great addition to what they collect.
Right.
I think so. That's fun. I mean, it depends on who you're asking, right?
But it seems like it's mostly in the meat of it. They want a higher hit rate rather than trying to hit that kind of super massive lottery kind of pick. Is that logical from your standpoint?
You would think, but no, it's again, it's really like who you're talking to. I mean, we have some users that have, they'll play 100 times in one sitting. I think our average number right now of pulls per consumer is somewhere between 30 and 40, which is wild.
Really?
And we're but it's so fun because a lot of people keep, right? So we have some people that will hit a grail and they'll take the swap value and then maybe they'll go shop on the marketplace and get multiple items, or they'll keep playing. And then we have other people that are really chasing that one grail because they want to hold that and add it to their collection.
Wait, so are they like pulling and then immediately selling back to you and then pulling again and immediately selling back and pulling again? I mean, are they doing that kind of stuff?
100%.
Sometimes, yeah, for sure. I'll tell you what, we had the guy that hit the Rolex the first time we put it in. He's a great community member. He decided to take the swap value, and then I know he went and shopped for a bunch of collectibles. I think he got some stuff on Beezie. I think he grabbed like an elemental because he's an Azuki holder. So that was cool to see too. And then the next person that hit the Rolex, which was like 3 weeks later, we put it back in. They decided to hold it. They redeemed it. He was from the UK. I think he got it within like 4 days from the vault because Brinks is exceptional. And, he had his wrist on the timeline within like 24 hours of receiving it. So it's been really fun to see the diversity of like what people actually want as collectors and as participants in the ecosystem.
Absolutely. Love to hear that. Degens from all over. Degens all over the space. Yeah. Andrea, Profits, appreciate you guys and ladies for coming on. Really enjoyed the conversation. I know we'll absolutely stay in touch and appreciate everyone who joined us today. We host a show Tuesday through Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be back tomorrow. Please follow all of the awesome speakers and accounts on stage to stay in tune. Everyone have a fun and safe weekend, and we'll see everybody next week.
Take care.